Hi there. Thanks for listening to Fresh Air at 5. This is episode 99 of the podcast. One more to go and we are at 100. Hey, take a listen to the call to action. I'd like to hear from you. So please send me an audio file according to the instructions in the next little bit. And without further ado, let's jump in to episode 99, Fresh Air at 5. Call to action, November 15, 2022. All right, everybody. Fresh Air at 5 is going to be 100 episodes old in, well, this is episode 97 this is going into, and then moving on, we're going to be 98, 99, and 100 in about 3 weeks from now. And so as I'm prepping and thinking about episode 100, it's a milestone. It's a big milestone. You know, I cheer on podcasters for crossing that line. That's significant and really important. I want to thank all of you that have faithfully listened to Fresh Air at 5 over this past year, almost 2 years now. And there's been a lot of influence in why I do what I do. And shout outs to Sarah Johnson and Chris Nessie, Tim Cavey, Tim Stevenson, the boys down in California, Ryan and Brian from Check This Out podcast. We got Eric and Nick out on the East Coast. And, my parents, my friends and family here. And so this is a call to action. My call to action is I'd like to hear an audio clip from you or a video, something like that, about how Fresh Air at 5 has affected you. What is your connection to Fresh Air at 5? How long have you listened to Fresh Air at 5? If you haven't listened to Fresh Air at 5, but you listen to my dailies, you're effectively listening to Fresh Air at 5. So go over and click subscribe in a podcatcher to Fresh Air at 5 so you can listen. And I would like to hear from you, a 30-second to 1 minute audio clip about how Fresh Air at 5 has impacted you, this thing that I do every day. What do you think about that? Kelly Croy, I'm going to shout you out as well and put you into this list. So thank you all. Appreciate it. I've been fortunate to be a guest on a number of podcasts and connection with Scott Nunes as well. So I'm going to ask this, and I'm hoping to hear back from you, hopefully within the next 2 weeks by the end of November, so I can spin up your comments in episode 100 of Fresh Air at 5. All right, that's the call to action. Thank you. Bye.
I'm Angela Kelly Robeck, host of the Empowered Principal Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at Fresh Air at 5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Hey, PLN, Monday, November 28, 2022. Happy almost December. We're almost here. And check that out behind me. There's snow on the ground. It fell last night. And it's our first snowfall here in Abbotsford since last winter. And we don't get snow very often, but when we do it, it gets our attention. So unlike the rest of Canada and most of North America, we are just enjoying snow a little bit right now. Got out this morning. It was a bit crispy on the ground, and I thought, got to be careful where you walk because it's going to be icy. So out for Fresh Air at 5. So glad I got out the door this morning, and want to just talk to you about a few things. One of those is that I'm on the verge of releasing episode 100 of Fresh Air at 5. That's going to be happening in 2 episodes from now. That's this one, and then the following one is episode 100. I can't believe it. It's pretty wild to think that I've been doing this for 100 episodes almost, and still committed to sharing my learning and reflecting on that which I'm listening to on my daily, and the professional development that I have gained over the years from being aware and paying attention to that which is going on in other people's spaces. So just wanted to say that. I'm glad I could bring some value to some of you by me doing this. And I see that, every day there's people that listen to my daily. There's people that listen to my weekly as I compile it all together. Thanks to Chris Nesi for the push 2 years ago to do this. And Chris has been a fantastic supporter of the podcast and an encourager as I've been going through and getting me started, learning the technology to be able to do this. And yes, also a big shout out to Cami Canikins, who's a faithful listener. So, it's there. People are listening. I really appreciate the support and encouragement from others. All right, that's my opening. This is episode 99, Fresh Air at 5. More to come. 1 second. One more thing for November 28, 2022. Hey, good morning, Chris. Chris Nesi. I listened to episode 213 of the House of EdTech. And in the House of EdTech, thanks, Chris, for putting my podcast bumper at the top of your show to spread the word about Fresh Air at 5. Thanks for the shout out towards the end of the show, as you mentioned my name, being an awesome supporter. And you know what? I support the House of EdTech with a touch of money each episode, as some of others of us do, to keep the thing going. And Chris, you know what? I'm really thankful for the work that you do in providing professional development and encouragement to use EdTech and how to approach different problems. So Chris Nesi is the podfather, and he has affected many podcasts through the days. And on episode 213, you talked about ed camps, and that's a curious thing. I've never been to an ed camp. There is one in a neighboring school district that I would consider going to. I should consider going to someday and seeing how that's run. Just because, it's a curious idea that you go to a conference that's an unconference, and you come away talking and sharing and doing sessions yourself. That's fantastic. I appreciate how you have encouraged your student teachers to get involved, and that is fantastic to hear that they led a session that was one of the biggest attended at the New Jersey Ed Camp this past November 19th. Yeah, so cool. And then later in the episode, Chris, you talked about an email from Brooke Ann as she shares her thoughts about and asks a question about EdTech integration and choosing tools for a district, and how can we get teacher feedback. And you brought up the idea of apathy and are we thirsty? Yep, this guy's thirsty. Though I do get tired, as it doesn't seem to change sometimes, or the work that you're doing gets exhausting. But are we thirsty generally? That's important. All right, thanks, Chris Nesi. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Have a fab day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. The last thing for November 28, 2022 is I'm walking along here, man. This is dangerous, icy out here. But I'm thankful that I get to go outside and go for a walk, and that it's not colder than it is, and it's not icier than it is. So, as I'm walking, I listened to episode 33 of Evolving with Gratitude with Lainey Rowell, and she has on guest Ali Belden, and Ali is instructional coordinator, instructional IS. I can't remember what that stands for, in her school district, and she's in her doctoral program talking about leadership and how to be a better educator. And Allie's a new mom, so congratulations to you, Allie, as you are bringing a little life along and raising a young one. So that's fantastic to hear. Shining a spotlight on gratitude is the name of this episode 33 of Evolving with Gratitude. And it's just heartwarming to hear people talk about their perspective on gratitude and why they do the different things that they do. And I'm thankful today for being able to get outside for a walk. I'm thankful today for being able to record on episode 99 of my podcast as we turn 100 in a week or so. And, I'm thankful. This morning, I ran into my friend Bruce and his dog Sophie as I'm walking this morning, and I got to see Sophie and Bruce, and we walked along beside each other for about 5 minutes and chatted and just caught up. And it's so good to have connections and people that you see as you go through the day. Don't take anybody for granted today. I encourage you to make sure that you acknowledge the people that are in your spaces and students that are in your lives. And, you don't have to get everybody in one day, but make it a practice to catch somebody every day and say, hey, thanks for being you. All right, with that, I'm going to hang up so I don't wipe out going down this hill to my house. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks, Lainey. Thanks, Allie. Have a fabulous day. Okay, bye-bye. Hey, PLN.
November 30th, 2022.
We got snow here, and I'm out shoveling this morning for Fresh Air at 5 as opposed to being out walking in the snow for Fresh Air at 5. I'd almost need my snowshoes around here. Not really, but I'd have to probably put spikes on because there's a lot of snow and it's pretty slippery. So this morning I didn't go for my walk, but I'm spending time with my shovel on my driveway, digging my wife's car out. We're expecting probably a snow day here. And, people around North America are like, are you kidding me? Well, we don't deal with this very often. And when we do, it's a very big distraction for the snow. So I'm thankful this morning that it's only 0 degrees Celsius, so it's not cold out right now, but that makes the snow really heavy. And I've been shoveling now while I've been listening to episode 34 of Evolving with Gratitude with Lainey Rowell. And Lainey, thanks so much for another episode of your podcast. You had on guest Mike Mohammed. And Mike, glad to hear your voice and hear about the great things you're doing in your classroom. Seeing and being seen is how you describe gratitude, and it's important that we know our students. I like how you are using the student portfolios in your science classroom as a way of building relationships, finding out what kind of music they listen to, and just getting a personal touch and relationship building with your students so that you can make progress later and they know that you're in their corner. That's so important. I believe relationships is such an important part of what we do as teachers, not because, relationships will inspire and make grades better, but because relationships are important. All right, Mike, thanks for sharing your personal story with us, and I wish you all the success in recovery as you are recovering from that. If you don't know what's going on, take a listen to what Mike has to say and Lady their conversation. So, yes, it's awesome to hear, and glad you're connected with George. I'm connected with George. Fantastic dude. All right, Lainey and Mike, thanks so much. Have a fabulous day. I'm going to keep on shoveling, dig out the other half of the driveway, and see what happens. Okay, bye.
One more thing for November 30th, 2022. Now I'm sitting in a dental office. My wife is a hygienist, and she's had an opening first thing because of the snow, and therefore I am here. Well, before this, I was out shoveling my driveway, and I would listen to episode 128 of EdTech Fights with Gabriel Carrillo, and he was talking with Jared Lippman, who is band director at a high school in Texas, and he talked about using Slack as a communication tool for working with the parents and students and communicating and just being a relevant tool. Small story, my wife in her dental office here are using Slack. At first my wife was like, oh, not another thing, but now she's on it and loves it. So there you go, there's Slack in action, and free Slack sounds like it's quite powerful. So Jared, a question for you, are you considering ever going to the paid version of Slack? What are the drawbacks of not having the pro version compared to the free version? My daughter's in choir, and I'm thinking about this for a tool for our choir for communication, because that's been something that has also been an ongoing lots and lots of emails, texts back and forth before concerts, etc. So yes, Gabe, thank you so much. Appreciate you having Jared on. Great to hear this conversation. And without further ado, I'm going to open wide here and say, for my wife so she can clean my teeth. She's a dental hygienist, I said. All right, peace out. Have a fabulous day. It's snow day here. That's why I'm in the dental chair, because it's snow day. We got snow, shovel the...
Another one more thing for November 30, 2022. It's later in the day. I listened to the Tom Schimmer Show podcast, episode 92. And fantastic as Tom, you talk out of the gates about taking that first step, getting started to do something. Today is an example of that. Today is snow shoveling day. We had snow day, and those of us that have a driveway, we got to get out there and shovel it. And how do you get started shoveling a driveway? You get going with the first shovel full of that. And my neighbor and I, we were just talking about the approaches. That's him in the background there, about shoveling a driveway and how do you start it and how do you think about that. You can overthink it and then it becomes too complicated, or you just get out there with your shovel and you just get going. So thanks, Tom. It's important that we be mindful of that and reduce the barriers for ourselves as we approach problems and things that are seemingly overwhelming, but you just do it one step at a time. I haven't gone to Everest, don't want to go to Everest, but they start off with one step at a time, and then the next step and the next step. And it's where discipline comes in, that we keep on taking steps as opposed to needing that mountaintop high experience to keep us going all the time. All right, that's your Don't At Me section, coming at you with another thought about your guest speaker that you had on the podcast. All right, the last thing for November 30, 2022 on the Tom Schimmer podcast, episode 92. Tom talks with Kyle Pierce, a math instructional teacher, and how Tom and Kyle talked about math in a way that is very much about the process, the way of thinking, the problem solving, as opposed to memorizing. I have a belief that I think it's important that we know certain math facts. Do we need to know all of the math facts? As Kyle was talking about math and understanding how to solve problems, even with, finger counting if we need to, that's okay. Using calculators when we need to, that's okay. But if we don't understand why the math works as it does, then we are at a disadvantage over those that do understand the math. I talk with my students about, do you understand why you do things this way? Do you understand that shortcut? And they're like, well, it's just a shortcut. That's the way you do it, as opposed to understanding where it comes from. And Kyle, I teach math. I have a minor in math with my bachelor's of education, but that's just so I can teach math. I have a chemistry background, and hearing you talk, I don't teach math the way that you're talking about in my online courses, but working with students, I try to get them to see relationships and trends and things that, are important so that they can make advances. I appreciate your thoughts. I'm going to share this with my colleagues so that they can listen to this. And appreciate you, Tom and Kyle, for having this rich discussion. I didn't listen to Assessment Corner this week, Tom, but because it's getting late in the day and I got to get on to doing some other work because I've done too many snow day things and not enough normal day things. All right. Hope you all have a great day. Fabulous. And out here in Abbotsford in British Columbia, we got a big dump of snow. There's car accidents and all kinds of stuff. Doing well, and we are staying safe here. Trust that Surrey is doing well for you out there, Tom, as well. Okay, bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it is December 2nd, 2022. Brian Carpenter here, bringing you Fresh Air at 5 from the Fresh Air. Here, it's -6. The wind's blowing at probably about 10 or 12 kilometers per hour. It is chilly out this morning. Yesterday I didn't go for my walk because it was blowing harder, and the roads were really crispy and icy. Behind me you can see there's snow on the ground. We are expecting some more snow later today, so hopefully that people can get home from work before the snow flies and causes havoc like it did on Tuesday night in Abbotsford and Vancouver and the whole lower mainland here. All right, as I'm walking, I'm reflecting on the fact that this is the very last segment of episode 99 of Fresh Air at 5. And so it's a big deal for me because next week is episode 100, and I'll be recording segments for episode 100. I will be including some voices of some colleagues and people and friends of mine out there that have been impacted by Fresh Air at 5. I've got a call to action at the very top of the past 2 or 3 episodes of Fresh Air at 5, asking for your voice. If you're listening to the podcast, if you listen to the dailies even, and the dailies make a difference for you, I would like to hear from you, and I'd like to hear your voice about how Fresh Air at 5 is impacting you, and what does it mean to you. So just, you can send me an audio file to my email, and my email is in the show notes, so you can get it there. Yes. So thanks so much. I appreciate it. Or direct message me here on Twitter. Those of you that are watching the dailies, right there you go. You can direct message me, drop an audio file in there, and I'll be able to get it out and put it in the podcast. So I've already got about 4 or 5 voices that I'm going to include in episode 100 next week. Appreciate all of you, and I'd like to hear from you as well. So thanks so much. And without further ado, I'm moving on to episode 229 of the Wired Educator Podcast with Kelly Croy. One moment coming up. One more thing for December 2, 2022. As I'm walking here and it's chilly, I'm listening to the Wired Educator Podcast with Kelly Croy, episode 229. As Kelly brings us an interview with Dr. Christopher Jones, and how Chris Jones has a book called Seeing to Lead, and they talk about seeing to lead as a model for leadership and a way of approaching leadership and working with people. So Chris, thank you so much for sharing that. They talk about his podcast and how and why he has his podcast, Seeing to Lead. Chris, I'm going to be adding that to my podcast roll, and I'm going to start listening to yours as part of my Fresh Air at 5 routine for listening to podcasts and professional growth for myself, and sharing that with others through my podcast. If you're not familiar with what I do, check out my podcast, Fresh Air at 5. Appreciate it. And yes, the whole thing that I heard from Chris Jones is that people matter a lot, and connecting with people where they are is so important. We as leaders in our spaces like to have people be further than where they are. And yes, that is for sure. But we need to meet them where they are. The 3 things that Chris talks about is support, engagement, and empowerment. And those 3 parts of leadership are so important. So thank you, Kelly and Chris, for talking about this. I was encouraged. I'm going to share this with some of the other leaders in my space that could need to hear this, or should need to hear this, or I just want to share it with them because they matter to me, and I want to just say thank you for mattering to me, and take a listen to this podcast because I think it'll encourage you. All right, that's all I got for today. My hand holding my phone is really, really cold. I'm going to put it back in my glove, and I finish my walk, go in for a warm cup of coffee. So, Chris and Kelly, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for sharing your voices here on The Wired Educator, episode 229. Peace out. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.